Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. So today's easier said is the fact that it's okay to change at any point. I think oftentimes we can remember who we were at a certain point and think we always have to be that person. It's okay to change any day, and don't feel like you owe anybody anything to always be the person you were. So it's okay to change any day. What's that quote? A woman always has the right to change her mind. Anybody has the right to change their mind, but I like the way it sounds. And it's like, a woman always has the right to change her mind. It sounds better Southern. A woman always has the right to change her mind. Anyway, welcome my guest, Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Doesn't that sound better Southern?
It does.
A woman always has the right to change her mind. Yo, I don't know what it is, but like when old Southern women say something, like I'm like, that's the prophecy right there. Whatever
I'm listening.
right. Whatever she said. So how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
I knew Tracy from like way back in the day, like
was it
almost 30 years? Yeah, probably like 30 years plus. Like me and your sister like grew up together, so like I was always at your house. So my word of the day today came to me because I was thinking about you and just our mini conversation when you came in, and how, you know, like we were saying that sometimes people remember you or try to put you in the box that you were in, 15, 20 years ago, where it's like, no, I'm different now, and that's okay. And treat me according to the person that I am today.
Right.
So you had posted something on Facebook talking about how you and your husband sort of shifted your marriage, or, you used a different word. You said rebuild your marriage, and change and fix things that you guys didn't necessarily like or weren't forwarding to your marriage. So that's what I want to talk about today, is like, how do you do that? Because you guys have been together since you were like teenagers.
Yeah, 17, 18 years.
How did you guys meet and form this partnership in the early stages?
I mean, even that started messy. Like, life is messy, you know what I mean? And we were 17 years old, and Nick, and he was pregnant. Well, he wasn't pregnant, but his girlfriend was pregnant. Mm-hmm. They had broke up and were on a break. Him and I ran in the same circles. And then we were at a field party, and I pinched his butt, and it was, and he looked at me like, oh. And then ever since then we kind of were, on and off.
So he was having another baby as you two were just forming a relationship. So what was that like?
Well, I remember Nicole is his son's mother. Mm-hmm. I remember her and him going to do an ultrasound, and him hearing Isaiah's, which is our son, his heartbeat. And he was like, I got to try and make things work with her, and, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, totally. Go see if it works. Like, that's a family, do what you got to do. Right. If it doesn't work, call me.
But call me though, just in case.
But then he did. Isaiah was born in August. Then it was our senior year, and he called me. It was right around prom time. It was a little bit before that, because I remember him not going to prom with me, and I was like, the second year in a row, and you ain't going to prom with me? But yeah, and so we started out, and we started dating again, and that was messy. Like, there was a lot of, I was with somebody at that time, and there was a lot of cheating back and forth because we weren't unsure. There was just a lot of feelings. I mean, when he has a kid, there's a lot of feelings. You're also
like 17, 18.
Exactly. And a hot mess. So, there was a lot of that. We broke up. That was, that was our year of a lot of experimenting. We did drugs you know, a lot of drinking. His brother died. And so there's a lot of feelings and stuff like that. We ended up breaking up for about a year. And then when we were 21, we got back together. And we've been together ever since.
So when did you guys get married?
We got married March 8th of 08.
So
11 years.
11 years.
Almost 12, yeah.
Did you have certain ideas about what marriage was and what it needed to be at that point? Like, did you go into it with an idea of, this is what I'm expecting out of a marriage and my husband?
Well, I think that life in general does that to you. Like, even your parents, how you've been conditioned, does that to you without even knowing. There's that whole, I don't want to be this because my parents were this. And you're so scared that you're going to be these things. And it really has nothing to do with your parents being these things, whether they cheated, whatever it is, right? Abusive, whatever. We always think that, oh, we're going to do this because our parents did. We are humans, our own selves, and we react, and there's like all kinds of different ways to we react to things, you know, in general, like pain or whatever. And it doesn't mean like, oh, if I stepped out on my marriage or I talked to somebody else, it was because my mom taught me that or my dad taught me that. I think that a lot of times we end up thinking that it's our parents' fault or whatever, or we didn't want to be like them and now we're like them or whatever. And it's not the case. It's just we don't know how to work through our feelings yet and deal with them in healthy ways. Those are all human things. Like, there's not just like, unless you're cheating because you're like a serial cheater and just a big man whore or woman whore, then that's one thing. But there's another thing of like cheating because you really thought you tried everything and you find there's no way out. And so then you find somebody else to talk to or whatever. Or drinking, take for instance. I don't think drinking is an addiction per se, like, oh, you have an addictive whatever. I think a lot of it has to do with the inability to cope with your feelings. And if you found more healthy ways to do that, then the addiction wouldn't have started in the first place. I think we put so much into what we don't want it to be, marriage. You know what I mean?
The fear, in a fear-based way then.
Yeah, we don't want this or we don't want that. We see these, or if you don't have somebody, say you don't have married parents, or anybody around you who's a good role model, then you think you're not going to be able to be that. Or you might not live up to, say, you know, if your parents are together for a long time and they've been great, you know, there's a lot of fear.
So it's like almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Like you look at things, either if they were great, you think, oh, I have to live up to that thing. If they were bad, you think, I'd never want that thing. And because you spend so much time focused on the fear around it, it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas if you focused on what you wanted, then you'd be more likely to get that.
100%. And that's kind of where Nick and I are at right now in this new phase of our life. We've decided to dismantle pretty much our old marriage. And we've done this before. We call our first relationship. And that was before 21. You know, a lot of crazy stuff went down at that time in general, and we leave it there. It's really hard, but
how do you do that? I don't know how to do that. I'm the type of person where I might forgive you, but I'm not forgetting anything. You know?
And I don't think and here's the thing. What I recently found out through therapy is that you don't need to forget. But when you remember it, you don't need to remember it through anger and how you felt at that time. Because people have changed and feelings have changed and life has changed. So you can still remember, but you can look at it as for facts instead of feelings. Because your feelings and your emotions will tell a whole different story.
And your feelings aren't facts.
Right. And they will put on a whole different story for that situation. And it's like, wait. That's why I write in this journal. I don't know. I read one of the Brene Brown books saying a shitty first draft journal. That's what I have. And you just write down all your feelings. And it can be nasty, you know. But then you sift through it and decide, okay, what is truth in this? What is truth? And then what is feelings?
How did you guys decide, you know what, let's scrap this old draft that we've both had and just start on a fresh chapter? What brought you guys to that point initially? So
for a while, we've been struggling with hearing each other. like literally hearing each other out. Like I can say stuff, but nothing's changing. Or he can say stuff and nothing's changing. My husband's had an issue with drinking. I believe he's had an issue. I have a lot of alcoholism around me, drug addiction and everything. From my dad, who's a really extreme alcoholic. My sister's all messed up. My brother died and he was drinking when he died on his motorcycle. I have had issues with Nick's drinking for years. And I have tried and I've tried and I've tried to tell him. Recently something happened. And even a year ago, he was talking to some lady at a bar. And so there was that. And I was like, dude, I'm in the middle of grieving my brother and you're talking to somebody at a bar. I didn't care about the fact that he would talk to somebody. It was the timing.
Right.
And I did care. Obviously, I cared about him wanting to or talking to somebody. But it was more so...
You're like, I can't deal with that right now.
Like, I'm a realist when it comes to relational. Like, I don't think everybody goes through life and you don't ever find somebody else to talk to and you don't ever do this and you don't ever. I don't put those kind of stipulations on our relationship. Like, that's not reality to me.
Right.
Like, if you made it to 60 plus years together, you've had some major trauma in your relationship that you've had to overcome regardless. I just feel like that. I just feel like life is hard. Not necessarily cheating or alcoholism or any of that stuff, but life is so hard and you have to go through big things, death of a sibling or whatever, death of a child. There's so many things. And for you to work through that, that's very traumatic. And so for you to make it through that, that's a lot of work. So.
Like something has to give when you're going through all these things. Everything else around it isn't going to be perfect. So it's not like I have this one isolated issue that I'm dealing with, but everything else is perfect. Like that's not how life works.
Right.
When one thing happens, like other things start to fall in the midst of that. And like something's always going to happen in life because it's just not perfect.
Right. And for us, I think it just came to a head because we weren't listening to each other, and when things happen in a relationship and then finally somebody's like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. Or when you're like, I'm going to leave you. I am going to leave you. And that's where I was with him. I'm going to leave. I don't want to do this anymore. I was giving up. I didn't have any more fight left for it. And it's felt like that a couple of times throughout our relationship. And fortunately, I've had a fighter for a husband who will fight for me.
So in those times when you've said, I'm done, this is it, he's come through and been like, no, we're not done. This can't be it.
Well, when we were younger, he was more, well, I'm not leaving type guy, which was annoying as hell.
So we could be done, but I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not, and he didn't. And I mean, because we've been together so long, there have been times where we've literally moved in separate bedrooms. You know what I mean? And literally just lived through that phase because we weren't sure is this just a phase that we don't like each other or is it real and we should get divorced? I mean, looking back, it's funny to me now because it was like I moved his stuff out of my closet into another closet. We did not like each other at that time.
Stay on your side of the house.
Yeah, it was, and we only had this little old 1,900 square foot Rambler. Like nobody was going anywhere. But we literally just coexist. And I think a lot of relationships, people feel like they're coexisting. And I'm here to tell you that's okay. Everybody wants to jump ship when coexisting happens. But guess what? It's life. It's just a phase. It's that down. And you're going to come right back up as long as you put in the effort. You know what I mean? And it's all effort. Like
I'm listening to you talk about this, Tracy, and, I'm a runner, right?
I know.
So I see things and I'm like, seem like this ship is sinking. I'm the first one off the Titanic. I'm off this boat. And I hear a lot of people say this. I hear a lot of people say, there's times where it's completely down and we're living in other rooms and looking at each other like, I don't like you, but we're still here. And the hard part for me is getting to the still here point. Like I said, once I see something sinking, I'm off and I'm not sure that I know how to or even have the capacity to weather those things. And that's what scares me truly about marriage because I know that that's what it's about. And this is really the fear in me. This is my longest relationship that I'm in right now because of that. And it's because he is the one that's like, oh, no. We're working through this. Because if it were up to me, several times I was like, I'm off this boat. I'll see you. This Titanic look like it's sinking. I'm out.
I know.
And so how do you do it? Like why haven't you left? Like, how have you been able to be like, we're going to get through this for sure. I know we're going to get through this. Like what's the thing that's just kept you there and fighting for it?
For us this time, again, like before, it was always Nick wouldn't just leave. and I know, and he's going to laugh when he hears this because he knows that's the truth. But this time he really said, I'm fighting for you. Like it was like totally different this time. The way everything went in our relationship, the way, I don't know, the way I felt safe. And because you lose yourself a little bit if you don't pay attention to what you're doing in your marriage. Like if you're not actually paying attention in your marriage, you can kind of lose yourself and start doing things for the other person, whether it's dressing a certain way or not dressing a certain way or whatever, you know.
It could become a we situation with everything, and you kind of lose your personal identity.
Well, and not even we, it's you. And I started realizing that too, is like, I need to find me. There's been a lot that's happened with me in the last year with my brother dying. And that was like a big wake-up call for me to figure out who am I, what am I doing here? And some of that had to do with my marriage. Is this where I really want to be? Is this really what I'm trying to do? We're not listening to each other. He's not going to change these things, you know? And I'm sure he felt the exact same way about me as she's not changing. Is this what I'm going to deal with for the rest of my life? So we just said, that's it. I actually watched a Red Table Talk with Jada and Will Smith, and I was like, this is exactly what we need to do. And it was about how they just don't want to be confined to what everybody else says marriage should be. Jada didn't even want to get married. For me, that was what I needed right now, is like I needed to take my mind out of what I think marriage should be or shouldn't be. And same with Nick. We needed to just remove what society, our parents, conditioning, whatever says marriage should be, and like let's redo what we think. We're grown in counseling. You know, I've been in counseling for 5-6 years and love it. Everybody should have a freaking counselor, and if you don't, please go find one.
Everybody needs therapy.
For real. It's just about like figuring out life together and having a professional opinion about the stuff that goes through your mind. Because you got to be able to filter that stuff. And it's just another tool to help filter that stuff out and help you through it. I mean, just when you think you're all good to go, all of a sudden you're crying in the next session. I'm like, oh, Terry got me. She got me again.
What did that first stage look like of rebuilding?
A lot of crying. A lot of late night talking in bed, a lot of sex. Like you're so emotional that when a lot of those emotions, sex just comes into it. I don't know why. That's just like it was like the weirdest thing. Like we'd be talking all this and truth, hard truth. Like it was. We brought it all the way back to that first relationship. That stuff didn't ever come up because you're just still carrying that baggage along. And you got to let some of that go, and you got to put it down because it's getting too heavy to carry all that stuff from 20 years ago.
Did you guys put stuff on the table from 20 years ago? Like, hey, I'm still hurt that 20 years ago you said and did this to me. I'm still carrying that.
Yep. And it was really tough when we would bring things up that was like, well, we're changed. We're different people now. It's like, yeah, but I didn't deal with that in a healthy way. Matter of fact, I never even dealt with it. But it's... Right now, when I'm being honest with you and I'm feeling safe to be honest with you and tell you exactly the truth of it and all of it without having any kind of, like we had broke it all the way down and we were like practicing being friends again. That's how we started to rebuild. We had the good bones to weather the stuff, but now we needed to rebuild it the way we want our next 30 years or whatever to look like, you know?
When you guys put all that old stuff on the table, do you feel like just putting it out there helped to resolve it?
Yep. It's acknowledging it, acknowledging that it happened and that it hurt you the way it hurt you. Because when you're in it, like at that time, 20 years ago, for one, you're 18. You know what I mean? All kinds of stuff are being said, done, whatever. And you just kind of move through it. You're young, you're just moving through it. But being able to like look back and say how it affected you and how all these years later, this might be because of it, and this might be because of that, and this might, you know what I mean? It helps you figure out how to move through those and like, okay, well, that's where I see that from. Let me acknowledge it and move. And when they acknowledge it is really, I think, when the healing starts to like really apologize for the way they made you feel. And now it's just, it is what it is. There's no, I don't tie my feelings to that anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I see for what it was, but the feeling of hurt isn't tied to it anymore because I got healing from that.
It seems like you guys did it in a really constructive way. Again, I'm thinking about how I might handle some of these things. I'm very emotional when I'm recalling certain things. Like I can almost take myself back to something that happened 10, 15 years ago. If the feelings were that strong about it, I can almost like, I could tell you about it and then get back to that moment. Like my boyfriend always says, like, if I'm talking about something emotional, he's like, calm down, we're not there anymore. Or that's not happening anymore. Like get back to this moment. Did it ever happen where you got back there where you were like, okay, well, wait, I'm, you know, Tracy in 2018 now, not Tracy, you know, in 2002. Like did it?
Oh yeah. Yes. Like, wanted to smack him with a pack of pork chops.
Right.
I'm cooking and I'm just like, oh, I hate you. I mean, yes. But that pain came back.
Right. And that's the part I'm talking about.
Raw.
It's a visceral.
It's so raw. I think it made him sad. But I think that in the moment of it, back in the day, you can't feel that sadness and whatever. You just feel what you're feeling, whatever. But later in life, or whenever you decide to actually address it healthily, I think he was able to actually feel the pain that it caused. And, you know, we were able to move past those. And same with me. I was able to feel the pain that I had caused and like see it and really feel it and feel bad and regretful and whatever, you know what I mean, for the pain I caused him. But as we went through those feelings, there was a healing of that hurt. So it was like we healed those children that were hurt back then. And so that was a big thing to be able to be in an adult relationship now. Because when you're so young in these relationships, you not only carry those baggage, but you carry the way you fought. You know what I mean? That whole time. And we was not fair fighters, okay? We were not fair fighters at all. And so going through counseling, it's funny too, because I'm like, you're not going to turn me into Tracy, 18-year-old Tracy. She's locked down. Like, I'm not trying to do that. He can, to this day, bring up anger or lust so fast to me regardless. You know what I mean? And so that's something that I know about myself. So I got to take adult time out and say, hey, I need a minute. I can't discuss this right now because I'm just, and I don't even know why I'm, you know what I mean? So let me take a minute. And then when I can calm down, then we could talk about it as adults. But right now, it just instantly made me go from 0 to 60, you know, so. And
I think there's so much programming in us that happens when we're children and in young adulthood that it's just in us. And it can come back at any time if we're not careful. And in those moments, you're right. I think the only thing you can do is say, hey, I feel it coming. I got to chill. I got to chill. I got to go. Give me a moment.
Like, I don't know if this is DNA. I don't know what this is, but it's
I
here
feel
to stay.
something.
Now I need to control it.
So you said that you guys are rebuilding a friendship and getting to know each other on that level. How are you doing that? Like, what are the active steps that you're taking to make that happen?
Like, we do weird stuff. Like, we went to dinner and didn't want to go back home because we got a whole bunch of kids. And then so we parked in the parking lot of the movie theater and we stayed there and made out and we talked and we just asked questions. If you don't even know what to ask, you Google questions to ask on a date or something like that. You know what I mean? And the reality is you think you know these people, like we were talking about before. I just had an aha moment because you really do think you know these people all this time and then you don't. Like, yeah, you knew who they were 20 years ago. But guess what? We've changed. And our thought process has changed. And even the way we view the world or whatever. And sometimes that can get scary in the essence of like, you don't even know me anymore, you know, or we shouldn't be together because we're so different now and blah, blah, blah. But really just get to know them again, you know, ask them the questions. Well, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I mean? Because we continuously figure these kind of things out as we go.
And they change all the time.
All the time.
What new things have you found out about your husband that, you know, are maybe shocking to you or you didn't expect in these conversations that you guys are having?
This is going to be a little TMI, but I don't even care. Sex changes too. You know, what you're doing, you might be young and freaky and whatever, and then you have kids and I don't know. The passion's never left. Like I always looked at Nick, even when I couldn't stand him, I was still attracted to him. So that has always kind of kept me too. Like, we've got this bond. I still want to do something to you and I don't even like it, you know? So as you go, like you think they know what you want in the bedroom, or you think you know that they don't want to do something or whatever, right? And then all of a sudden, as we talked through us talking and having these flirtatious talks or whatever, breaking down our relationship, it's been funny to find out the different things that we actually might like to do in the bedroom that neither one of us knew. And so I think that put a whole new spin onto our relationship as well, is exploring each other and listening to each other, like talking. Like we didn't talk and tell each other what we wanted to do in the bedroom. But especially
when you're so young and you are just really getting to know your own body and what you like in that way. You're not having those conversations. And then I could see how years it compounds onto that and you just never really talk about it.
And you're like, oh, I just feel comfortable with my stretch marks with them. Like, what? No, there's more to it.
Right.
Like, you got to feel real comfortable, like your whole body. I don't even know that I'm comfortable with my own body. You know, I'm 38. It took, like, I'm just starting to feel those ways because I've been with this man forever. In marriage, a lot of women feel obligated to have sex and do this and do that. Like, it's their obligation. And that was one of the things that I told him that I wasn't into doing anymore. I'm not going to have sex out of a duty to you. You have to come to me with a whole different frame of work. I just feel like my body's my body, and I don't want to use it towards you. Women use it towards men too. Like, well, I'm gonna give you this, and then you want to give me that.
It's like a reward, like almost like how you would treat a child. Like, we will go to the park when you clean your room. Like, sex isn't a reward system in a relationship. It
has been. Yeah, and I think a lot of marriages, it's either like a, here you go, or whatever. You know,
I clean the garage, I get sex.
Or something. Listen, I'll tell you what, you cook dinner and you do some dishes, boy, you getting something. I don't even care. Like, I'm into that. Like, but that turns me on. Like, when you're doing something and, you know, what to take off my plate, I'm definitely going to reward you in ways that fit you in that way. And that is, I think that's normal. But I mean, obligated is a different feeling. One of the things that have changed is just finding out that we like different things in the bedroom. I mean, that's a big thing as a grown-up. No one tells you, like, your mom and dad don't tell you things change. You know what I mean? Like, nobody older than you is going to be talking about, like, well, shit's going to change when you get older. And, you know, you don't even, we just hope that we're still doing it at 50, 60, 70, you know? Nobody's telling us.
And so with the changes that you guys, you know, have instituted within the marriage, how has it affected the way that you guys parent? Because you guys have 4 kids.
Yeah. I've got a stepson who is 20. And then we have 3 daughters together, 15, 11, and 6. Here's the thing. I think that parents who act like everything's A-okay, I don't think that's healthy for your kids. When parents try to avoid any arguing or anything like that around their kids, my parents did a really good job of that actually growing up. They never argued around us. And then at 18 or so, they got a divorce or they separated. And it was like, what the fuck? Like, that was not even like, we didn't even know what happened. It was just so... Everything was perfect and then boom. And not even perfect, but they just never fought around us. The most my mom would be like, you know, John, and that was
you know what?
You know, John. And And everybody's different too. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like just because how you do your house and your family, it's not the same as me, and that's okay. And there doesn't have to be that comparison. Like, I'm so sick of society comparing everybody. And that's what our breakdown and our rebuild's all about too, is guess what? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. We're in the trenches. We're doing this. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks on how we should do this and what it needs to look like, and not even our kids. You know what I mean?
Can we pause for a second? Because I just had a very like vivid memory. Do you know what I like remember most about your mother?
What?
She, every week on the fridge, the menu would be posted.
Yeah.
So like Monday, we're having spaghetti and meatballs. Tuesday, there would be pizza. And so I would know what days to come back to your house. Like, I'd look on that
Angie
like...
would do the exact same. Angie would do the exact same.
So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm down for spaghetti night. I'm going to come back on Monday.
It's legit. I still do that to this day.
And so it's funny. I don't do it like every week or anything, but I like to like cook and then put stuff in the freezer. And so I'll always, after I cook and do like a big cooking day, I'll put like what's now available. And that's really inspired by your mother. And I just put the two together.
I love that. I do that to this day. I'm like, do I even want to eat here? No.
Right. When do I want to come back to my own house?
So, yeah.
So anyway, you were saying not every relationship and not every marriage has to look the same.
And it can work regardless. Like, what works for you doesn't have to work for somebody else. You know what I mean? What your marriage looks like doesn't have to look like other people's marriage. And it doesn't mean it's successful or not successful. It's whatever you make it and whatever makes you and your spouse happy. You know, what the different things that it's taught our kids, what we're going through right now as we go on dates more. So they're doing a lot more together as siblings, and they're taking care of their siblings more and seeing us concentrate. And we literally tell them, do you want us to get divorced?
What do they say?
Because if they complain about us going out too much or something like that. And we don't. We go out like once a week, and it'll be like to dinner or something like that. Or even if he's riding up to take something back at a store, I'll ride with him instead of just us being so separated all the time.
So taking whichever opportunities you have to spend that time together.
Take a little road trip, and we have great conversation in the car, and it can be stupid and silly and funny or deep. You know, our kids, we literally say to him, if they complain, we're like, oh, well, we could get divorced. We got to make our relationship a priority. Like, it has to be number one. Otherwise, when you kids leave, there's not going to be anything. We're not going to even know each other. It puts that into perspective for them too. I don't want them to be in relationships that they're not happy in, or that they don't know. Nobody told them there's going to be hard times. You got to get through them. This matters more than this, so that if it is wrong and you don't feel it, move on. You know what I mean? Don't stay just because you think that you have to.
Right.
You know?
I love that you guys share that with your kids, because I think often, to go back to what we were saying in the beginning, you know, we can sugarcoat things in a way to where they feel like they have to live up to something or be completely different from something. Whereas if they see you guys working through this process and you say, hey, we don't want to end up in a place where we're going to get divorced because we didn't make us a priority. You guys are amazing. We love you. But sometimes we are the priority, and it has to be like that to continue to make this family dynamic what it is.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
How does your oldest respond to that? Because, you know, the two oldest ones are grown enough now to where they can understand what that might mean. How do they react?
Girls?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're understanding. They understand that completely, and then they don't give us crap anymore about it. You know what I mean? And they really have been really good about like just letting us even just spend more time cuddling in the morning instead of, you know, rushing us to do stuff or whatever. I think that they, you know, when we were arguing, they would let us know. They're very vocal. Our household's very open. We talk about our feelings. We fight about our feelings. We forgive. Having a household that's very vulnerable like that, the kids tell us, look, we don't want to hear you fighting anymore, or we don't want to hear you arguing. And then Nick and I really, we used to, even back when things weren't as, you know, in this new relationship, we would say, hey, look, the kids don't want to hear this, you know? And we would explain to them too, hey, you know what? You got to understand a couple of things though. You don't go from, I said, look at you guys arguing as sisters. You don't go from arguing as sisters and then all of a sudden you're never going to argue with a spouse for the rest of your life. That's not reality. You're going to have arguments, just like you had arguments with your main unit when you were born. Your mom and dad, you argue with us, you argue with your sisters, you know what I mean, your brother, whatever. You're going to argue with your husband and your kids or whoever's in your next unit, you know, and you just have to figure out healthy ways to argue. Their relationship is a big, huge deal to me. My mom used to always say, oh, it's just your sister. It's just your sister. It doesn't matter what she says. It's just your sister. And
like almost demeaning the relationship.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Because that's how it was in her relationship. What, like her mom would say, oh, don't worry about it. It's just your sister. And I go the complete opposite with my kids. And I let them know, this is the only person in this world who knows what it's like to be raised in this house. These are the only people. These are your people. These are the only people who know how crazy Dad and I are. You know what I mean? And know what it's like to get yelled at or whatever. However, get loved and treated the way we treat you. So this is a forever friend. It's a relationship to be cherished. And I treated my sister like crap growing up. You know, I did. I was just not a good sister. And it hurt me as an adult to literally, I would feel such guilt about it. And that she forgave me and like would loved me anyways and still wanted to be my best friend or whatever, you know? And so I just didn't want them to have those same kind of, they fight and whatever, but they literally try to think of the other person a lot more than I know I did with my sister growing up. So I'm trying to heed some of those warnings before they have to have too much therapy bills, you know?
I love how open you are with them, though. I'm a big fan of not shielding children from whatever the truth is. You know, obviously you have to judge if they're at the right age to understand and comprehend certain things. But when they are, let me tell you what it is and just like it is, because this is the real world. This is how things are going to happen. Things are not perfect. You don't always like the people you're around, but you need to respect, learn boundaries, like express yourself. Like I love that. I love that you guys, especially the part about letting them into your own relationship and what you guys need in order to be great for them and yourselves. Like that's awesome.
Well, and my husband and I have had some major things that have happened in our lives. He lost his brother. I recently lost my brother last year. They've seen all the way grief works in such a young age. We don't have any other option than to be very transparent and open with our kids. Like there's so many big feelings going on. I feel like you're doing a disservice to your child by not being transparent and open with them.
So how have things that have happened outside of your relationship affected the relationship? For example, your brother passing last year. How does life and all the things that happen outside of this relationship affect the relationship?
Oh, well, just to touch on Travis's death, that actually separated us. We just grieved separately. And I think both of us had a couple different reasons for that. When his brother died, my brother really stepped up to be his brother. And so for us, we both were grieving a brother. And so we didn't want to put our grief onto the other person. We didn't want to make them hurt more, have to carry more, or trigger each other. That's what we found out as we broke our relationship down, because we drifted apart and we didn't know why we were doing that at that time. I needed to go through my stuff and he needed to go through his stuff, and we kind of dealt with it separately. And now we're doing it more so together, in the essence of he knows what I'm feeling. My best friend Angie doesn't know what I'm feeling. And none of my friends know what I'm feeling other than Nick and his sisters, you know, like because they lost a brother. And there's a different kind of, when you're going through something and you don't want other people to always feel bad for you, or you don't want to put it on them to feel like they have to fix something for you, or you don't want to be sad all the time or something around people. My husband really lets me go through my feelings. I can have a bad day, I can have a bad moment, I can have whatever, and I can call him and say it, and he's not going to be like, oh, she should be over this already, or even feel bad for me in that way. He just knows the feeling. He knows, he feels it. He goes to work and thinks about my brother because that's where they worked together before. And you know what I mean? Just like different things. So it's those kind of outside things have brought us closer. I'm an empath, so that tends to not work out for us in the essence of I take on people's feelings a lot. If they're having troubles in their lives or in their relationships, now it's all heavy in my spirit. And so it becomes his problem sometimes. And he has been telling me that over the years many a times. There's truth in what he's saying too that I do take on. And so I'm trying to not take on so much and have boundaries for our sake. And he does a great job again at like kind of saying, hey, this is somebody else's stuff. This isn't ours. This, you know, and I have to remember that like, okay, yep, this isn't our fight, which is really hard for me to do.
So what do you think throughout this journey of rebuilding your marriage, what have you learned most about yourself? Or what maybe has surprised you about yourself?
I think the most surprising thing for myself is that I'm able to keep going. I get scared that I'm making the wrong decision, and I think a lot of people do that. And me and Nick have talked about that, like, you know, different times throughout our relationship, thinking, is this the one? Should I be here? What am I doing? You know, but we really put our trust in God as well as like, and that's one thing I'm thankful for too, is having a husband who goes to church with me, who believes what I believe. We have the same belief system. He's a hard worker, you know, and those are like the solid things that I love in him. That keeps me here. Like his hustle's hard like mine. And so I keep trying to, I want now with me kind of moving through my grief, come back up to his hustle, you know what I mean? And now get back into more. He becomes my why on why I want to get things done or excel. That's, you know, it used to be to help people or to do this, but right now it's to be what he needs me to be and be what he's been for me over the last year, a provider, somebody who's solid, has been there for me even when I didn't see him. And that surprises me to, even in the midst of wanting to leave, really recognizing after we break everything down how he has been there for me in ways that you can't see when you're feeling all in your feelings, you know?
Mm-hmm. And when we are in those feelings, that's when we see sort of the worst in people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, it's like you see, you did this and you did that and you did, but you don't think about all the stuff they're doing every day, sometimes out front, sometimes in the background, you know, and it's not until you get to that place where you're willing to be empathetic with their situation as well as your own, where you start to recognize like, wow, you were really doing all that. Like you might not have said it every day or let me know, but like, wow, you kept a lot of that going.
He held it down, and it might not have been an emotional way that I might have been in my own world and he might have been in his own world, but he kept going every single day. And like, that's important for me, even for our kids to see. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me to see how dedicated. He wasn't just like wanting to, hey, I want you, I'm going to work hard for you. It was really seeing how he's like put in, he's not just talk anymore. There's a lot of talk, and I don't do talk. I do action. If I don't see it, I don't believe it, you know? And so this new rebuild has been really beneficial in that way, is where there's a lot more action for us, you know, which I like. A lot more action.
I love it. You're really making me think I want to get married sometime. Maybe we'll see. I go back and forth.
Here's the deal. Here's how I look at marriage. And this is like coming from somebody who's been with somebody forever. Who said it? I swear it was like Bob Marley. And he said,
Jamaicans be saying all the right
all
stuff.
Right.
No.
All right, girl. He said something along the lines like, the people you love are going to hurt you. You can't escape that kind of stuff, but you got to find the ones who are worth that pain. And Nick is worth that pain to me. Even on days when I don't see my life with him, I never see my life without him. Like I just never do. Like I don't even want to cry, girl. Don't make me cry on this thing, but I never see my life without him. And so that's why I stay. Like no matter what, that's why I stay. I don't see like we have so many things that as much as we are so different, we have so many great things that we are the same in. And so that's just all the learning process. We're in a phase right now where we're just trying to figure out, is this going to work and whatever? And we're going to just keep putting whatever we got, throwing whatever we got into it because we want it to work, you know?
Even on days I don't see my life with him, I never see it without him. Wow, Tracy. I love that quote. Mm-hmm. Wow. I love that. A Tracy Hustoff original. Write that down. Make sure you get credited on that quote.
Go ahead and quote me on that. No.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm so glad we did this. I needed to hear the real on it. So thank you for being real about it and being open about the fact that there's struggles. It's not always good. It's not always pretty, but that it's possible to, know yourself and rebuild and make it fun.
And find people who are real too about it. Like if you have people constantly telling you like, oh no, that's a bad sign or whatever, it's going to just trigger that run factor. Mm-hmm. But if you got people who are in it, ask your parents, like real talk, like sit down and say, hey, I know we don't talk about this stuff.
My mom came on the podcast recently.
Did she?
Her episode's not out yet, but yeah, we got real about some stuff.
I love that.
It's funny. Like you don't know people till you get on this mic.
I'm saying, yes. And it's important that you have people in your life who will cheer you on no matter what, whatever you're going through. And finding people who will love your spouse, even when you're talking about them, like venting about them, they're still going to love them through that. Because that's one of the big things that I've learned throughout my relationship is which friends am I safe to vent to? I'm very protective of Nick, even if I'm calling him an asshole. Like, only I can call him an asshole. It's like the sibling thing, you know what I mean? Like, only I can beat up my sibling. You touch it, I'll mess you up. But that's how I feel about my husband. And it's not that they have to agree with me or not agree, but I know what friends really love us and truly love us and know that life is about ups and downs, and this is just me venting. It has nothing to do with me wanting to leave my husband. It has everything for me to do just to get it out.
Right.
And then you have great friends who'll be like, yep, me too, girl. And then what you realize is that you just really have to find that. If you're wanting to be a person who gets married, find the person who you're willing to go through the ups and downs with. That's it. And you'll find them. There's this thing, like I said with Nick, there's this thing between us, and I don't know what it is, and kids have added to it and whatever, but it's a bond that makes me feel like I never not see myself with him. And so we'll just go through whatever life brings at us, and I'll know he had my back,
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Yep.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to tell you the one thing I always remembered about your brother. Mm-hmm. I never saw him not with a smile. Mm-hmm. I don't think there was ever a day, and again, I came to your house on all the right days, best meals, but I never saw him not smile. Like I never saw him just like, hey, what's up? Like he was just a ball of like happy energy because he was always like that. When you were then around him, you couldn't not help but to be like that.
Yeah.
Like even if you were like, whatever, hi. Like you felt like, oh, hi, like I'm happy now because you're happy. Like let's be happy.
Yeah. I feel like that's who you were right there when you was little. I'm like, Weeds, your friend's too happy. I don't know what's going on with it.
Probably because your brother was around. A little crush on him at some point too,
Everybody did.
Please reach out to me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let me know what you think of today's show. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.